in chat, I need you guys to tell me your opinions on proximity chat, because to me, it seems like a mechanic, social feature, whatever you want to call it, that significantly amplifies the potential for organic player interactions. That's a very corporate way of saying it. But basically, I think when you have proximity chat, it opens up all new dynamics that are just frankly not there if you don't have proximity chat. So in a game like Arc Raiders, if you have prox chat, there's all sorts of different things that can happen that are not possible if you don't have prox chat. You can do things like not just negotiating with players to extract together, or I had this happen in a game. I actually played with Jacob. We were in Arc Raiders and we just like hopped up on top of a building and we saw a few other players and I called out, "You guys friendly?" Like, "Yeah, we're friendly. You friendly?" "Sure am, as long as you're friendly." "Okay." And then we hear another voice chime in and then another. Soon enough, we had 8 total people standing on the rooftop of this building all together. And we decided to work together to take out a gigantic, I'm not sure if it was a bombardier or what it was, but a gigantic robot that was near us. We all took it down. We each got a piece of the loot and then we all extracted together. It was great. And that was not possible. I would not have been able to take on that robot by myself at that point, but we worked together. And that was something that would not be possible other than like maybe you run up to a player and just teabag a lot to be like, "You friendly? You teabag too?" And you try to communicate that way. But the voice chat allowed for that thing to happen. It's one of the more memorable moments I've had in Arc Raiders. And there's a lot of other ones like I mean, there's plenty of clips that you can point to. If I could find the part I'm thinking of, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to find it. Nope, I don't see it. Sorry. Okay, I was trying to find the moment where Burnt Peanut was screaming for help, but I don't see it. So anyway, there's lots of things that are possible that are not possible if you don't have prox chat. And what's fascinating to me is that there's a lot of specifically within some of these studios that have gone sort of corporate. There's a hesitance with proximity chat being put in their games, and it always centers around, at least what they say publicly, is toxicity. So for example, when we went to Bungie's headquarters in Washington back in April to see Marathon early, we asked them, "Will you have proximity chat in Marathon?" An extraction shooter where like you're either playing solo among trios or, you know, you might go in with duos, but there's no duo or solo queue at the time. It was just trios. And so like prox chat would probably be pretty important. They said, "No, we just have not." I think what they said was like, "We haven't found a way to deal with the toxicity problem." Like they're worried about people being toxic. And so they just wouldn't put it in the game at all. And something similar happened with FBC Firebreak. And this is what made me think of it. So like FBC Firebreak, if you're not aware, frankly, kind of fair. It is a game from Remedy. And this was also like an extraction shooter, cooperative extraction, whatever you want to call it, cooperative shooter. I don't know. It feels like everything's an extraction shooter now. But this was a game from the guys over at Remedy, the guys that did Control. And they released this earlier this year. And they were asked if they were going to have proximity chat for, you know, randoms being put together and all of that. And they said, no. They said, "No, we're not doing that." The game comes out. It is by pretty much every metric a failure. Like it just did not work. Did not work. And they, I think, wrote down like close to $30 million as a loss because of this game. But that's also because it was rushed. It wasn't ready. It was never that original or interesting of a concept. There's plenty of reasons why it didn't do well. But the proximity chat is also another component of it that I just find so bizarre, because it's something, or in this case, integrated voice chat, but it was also not put in there allegedly because of proximity chat. In the case of Marathon, they didn't put it in because they're worried about toxicity. In the case of some of these other ones, I don't think I can say the name of it, but there was another game, an upcoming game, multiplayer game that they asked me to check out, and I checked it out, and I asked them if it was going to get team chat / proximity chat, and they said, "No, we're worried about the toxicity problem." And they didn't use those exact words, but it was like, "We're worried about making sure that everybody can have a good time, even if they're using voice chat. We don't want them to run into players who are more like disagreeable or whatever." And so, you know, there was a reason they didn't want to do it. But I think in the case of Arc Raiders, it's shown how it can really elevate the player experience as well. Not just for content creators to make funny clips, but also just in general for players, because things like I described become possible. And it's just so bizarre to me that you can have these games that do not include those features in pursuit of some desire to free players from toxicity or or maybe it's just a matter of budget cuts and limitations. I don't know. Maybe it's a server infrastructure problem, and so it's exponentially more expensive to have proxy chat. I don't know. But it's really, really, really bizarre. Really bizarre. And it ends up shooting the games like in the foot, which is what's even more crazy. Marathon releasing without proxy chat would be such a blunder. It would be catastrophic. It'd be insane. Absolutely crazy. But they weren't going to do it until, you know what? Arc Raiders comes along, does incredibly well, has proximity chat. What do you know? All of a sudden, Marathon, they've added proximity chat in the latest playtests, allegedly. I've not been invited to any of the playtests, but I've heard through the grapevine, because people like to break NDAs, that it does have proximity chat now. So it was never a matter of technical limitations or anything. It was just that they didn't want to. And they didn't want to, maybe because they genuinely feared toxicity would ruin the game. But I would say whoever they're talking about or talking to that is scared of proximity chat, they should stop listening to them. You know, like they should stop listening to them. And it makes me pause and really think about, like, who are the people they're getting advice from? Because proximity chat in an extraction shooter is, I personally think it's a must have, at least as a feature. If you don't like it, turn it off. That's the ultimate way to fix fix toxicity, is just allow players to mute players or turn it off. Easy. It also seems like there is also a like reputation system under the hood within Arc Raiders where they are tracking player toxicity levels, basically. So they can track if you encounter a player, and then they see if you betray them and if you engage with them. Because, you know, in the post-match screen, it shows like when you encountered a player and when you did this and when you fought this robot and this and that. What they found is like you can, or what's suspected is that the game is tracking all of that, and players who encounter other players and then engage them in combat very quickly after, they get ranked as like a confrontational player, and those players are put with other confrontational players. But the players that tend to play peacefully and are friendly, they are put into a different bucket, and they get match made with other friendly players even more and more frequently. So you end up with all the PvPers put together with each other, and then you end up with the friendly players put together over here. So if you want to play peacefully, you have that more likely to happen to you. Is that for real? It's suspected at this point, to be very, very clear. So there's been people that, and I tried this myself, where like one night you sit down and play, and you play super aggressively. So you play super toxic. You go, you fight everybody, no friendly, no nothing. You just are fighting and trying to kill or be killed, right? And when I've tested this, the nights where I do that, the matches might start with some friendlies, some people like trying to communicate, but then it just takes a nosedive and everybody is sweaty and nasty and super toxic. Like super toxic. But then like a couple nights later we'll be playing and we're super friendly, everybody's super friendly, and it's like somehow conveniently every match you play, everybody's super friendly after the first few rounds. It's really, really bizarre. It's really bizarre. So it's suspected at this point, not confirmed, but it's suspected. I don't know though. I don't know. I would love to see behind the scenes, but I think obviously they don't want to reveal if that's the case, because then people will start gaming it and farming it. Because what you'll see is toxic people, then they'll go and like be super, super friendly off stream, and then they'll go on stream and be super toxic to farm clips and stuff. And I'm sure the flip side is also true. I mean, probably flip it as well. But yeah, I think they'll keep that type of thing quiet. I don't know. But either way, it'll be whatever's happening is fascinating to me, because it's just such an obvious thing to have. And so many studios are petrified of proxy chat. And here's the real kicker to all of this. Toxic people will be toxic whether they have voice chat or not. They will. Just instead of saying something nasty over the voice chat, they'll teabag you. You know, those were the good old days. Those were the good old days. When you'd be playing a game, you get downed, and then the guy runs over. Old school Halo, for example, come over, they just teabag you. That was old school toxicity. Now, didn't they do something like, didn't like some player in a tournament get like banned because he was playing in the esport tournament for like Halo Infinite, and he teabagged somebody and they kicked him out of the event? I think that's what it was. It's been a while since that happened, but I remember seeing that. I was like, okay, we've fully lost sight. Like, come on, man, come on. Still happens in Battlefield. Look, dude, it is like, if the worst thing you do in life is teabag players in a video game, you've done pretty well. Okay, you've done pretty well. Anyway, it's so dumb. But now I think, you know, the market has spoken. It's like, yeah, you can not have prox chat. You can have no team chat because you're just like, we don't want to deal with toxicity. You can do that. But we're just not going to play. So it's like, okay, it's up to you. It's up to you.